For 25 years, Rosa Martinez kept the biggest secret in sports. She cooked for Michael Jordan during his greatest championship run from 1995 to 1998. She watched him eat breakfast every morning. She made his pre-game meals. She traveled with the team. And she never said a word. Until now. What Rosa's about to reveal will shock basketball fans around the world. It's not what you think. It's not some special diet or magic supplement. It's something much more powerful than that. Something that changed Michael Jordan's life forever. And something that might change yours too. This is the true story of what really made the greatest basketball player of all time so great. It wasn't just talent. It wasn't just hard work. It was a secret ingredient that Rosa added to every single meal. Rosa Martinez wiped flour from her hands and reached for the ringing phone. The lunch rush at Abuela's kitchen was finally slowing down. Steam still rose from the grill, where she had just finished making her famous chicken tacos. Abuela's kitchen, this is Rosa, she said, balancing the phone between her shoulder and ear. Ms. Martinez? This is Sarah Chen from ESPN. I'm calling about a documentary we're making about Michael Jordan. Rosa's heart stopped. She gripped the phone tighter. After 25 years, someone had finally found her. I think you have the wrong person, Rosa said quickly. Her voice shook a little. We know you worked as Mr. Jordan's private chef from 1995 to 1998. Sarah continued. We'd love to interview you about his eating habits. What he ate during those championship years. Rosa looked around her small restaurant. The walls were covered with family photos and certificates. Awards from the city for best Mexican food. Pictures of her grandchildren, but no photos from her time with the most famous basketball player in the world. She had kept that secret for 25 years. People think they know Michael Jordan. Rosa said softly, almost to herself. They know about the 6 championships. The tongue wagging. The fierce competition. But they don't know about the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Excuse me? Sarah asked. Rosa realized she had spoken out loud. She took a deep breath. Maybe it was time. They don't know about the secret ingredient that changed everything, Rosa continued. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Rosa could hear Sarah typing quickly. Miss Martinez, would you be willing to talk with us? On camera? Rosa closed her eyes. She thought about the contract she had signed so long ago. The promise she had made to keep Michael's private life private. But that was before she understood what her story really meant. Let me tell you something, Rosa said, sitting down on a stool behind the counter. I came to America when I was 12 years old. My parents brought me here from Mexico with nothing but hope and 2 suitcases. She paused, watching customers eat at the small tables, families sharing meals, children laughing. My mother cleaned offices at night. My father worked construction. They saved every penny to send me to cooking school. Kendall College of Culinary Arts, right here in Chicago. That's wonderful, but Sarah started. No, let me finish, Rosa interrupted. I worked my way up, started washing dishes, then prep cook, then line cook. I was 33 when I got the job at Charlie Trotter's restaurant. You know Charlie Trotter's? Yes, it's famous. It was the best restaurant in Chicago. Maybe the best in America. I was a sous chef there. I thought that was as far as I could go. A Mexican immigrant woman in a fancy kitchen. Rosa's voice grew stronger as she remembered. Then one day in November 1995, my life changed forever. The phone rang in the kitchen. Chef Trotter handed it to me. He had this strange look on his face. She could still remember that moment perfectly. The chaos of the busy kitchen. The smell of expensive ingredients. Her hands shaking as she took the phone. The voice on the other end said, Is this Rosa Martinez? The one who made the black bean soup last Tuesday? I said yes. Then he said, This is Michael Jordan's assistant. Mr. Jordan would like to offer you a job. Sarah was typing faster now. Rosa could hear the keyboard clicking. I thought it was a joke, Rosa continued. My coworkers were always playing tricks. But the man kept talking. He told me about salary, about benefits, about working at Mr. Jordan's house. Rosa remembered how her knees had gone weak, how she had to sit down on a milk crate in the corner of the kitchen. The money was more than I made in a whole year at the restaurant. But there was one rule, one very important rule. "What was that?" Sarah asked. Complete silence. I could never talk about what I saw, what I cooked, what I heard. Nothing. Ever. Rosa looked at the framed photo on her counter. Her 3 children at their college graduations, all of them had gone to university because of the money she made cooking for Michael Jordan. "I signed that contract," Rosa said, "and I kept that promise for 25 years. Through 6 championships, through his retirement, through his comeback, through everything. So why are you willing to talk now?" Sarah asked gently. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. She thought about Michael, about the man behind all the fame and success, about the secret she had carried for so long. "Because the world needs to know the truth," Rosa said finally. "Not the truth about what he ate. That's not the real story. The real story is about the secret ingredient." "You mentioned that before. What do you mean?" Rosa smiled, even though Sarah couldn't see her. "People think they know what made Michael Jordan great. They think it was talent, or hard work, or his competitive spirit. And maybe all of that is true. But I know something they don't know." She paused, remembering mornings in that big kitchen in Highland Park, making breakfast while the most famous athlete in the world ate at the counter like any other person. "I know about the thing that really kept him going during the hardest times. The thing that helped him win those championships. It wasn't vitamins or protein shakes or any special diet." Rosa's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "It was something much more powerful than that. Something that changed everything I thought I knew about success and greatness and what really matters in life." Sarah was completely quiet now, waiting. "But that's a long story," Rosa said, "and it's not one I can tell over the phone. If you want to know the truth about Michael Jordan, you'll have to come here, to my restaurant, and I'll tell you everything." Rosa gave Sarah her address and hung up the phone. She looked around Abuela's kitchen one more time. Tomorrow, everything would change. The secret she had kept for 25 years would finally be told. She thought about Michael, wherever he was today. She hoped he would understand. Some secrets were meant to be kept, but some secrets were meant to be shared. This was one that needed to be shared. The world deserved to know about the secret ingredient that really made Michael Jordan great. And Rosa Martinez, after 25 years of silence, was finally ready to tell them. Rosa closed her eyes and let her mind travel back to November 1995. She was 33 years old then, with calloused hands and big dreams. The memory felt like yesterday. It was a cold Tuesday night at Charlie Trotter's. The dinner rush was over. Rosa was cleaning her station when Chef Trotter walked up to her with a strange look on his face. "Rosa, there's someone on the phone for you," he said. "Says he works for Michael Jordan." The other cooks stopped working and stared at her. Maria, who worked next to Rosa, started laughing. "Very funny, Chef," Rosa said. "Who is it really?" But Chef Trotter wasn't smiling. "I think he's serious." Line 2. Rosa's hands were shaking as she picked up the phone. Her English was good, but when she got nervous, sometimes the words got mixed up. "Hello," she said quietly. "Is this Rosa Martinez? The one who made the black bean soup last Tuesday night?" The voice was professional and serious. "Yes, that's me. My name is Tim Grover. I work for Michael Jordan. Mr. Jordan ate at your restaurant last week. He specifically asked about the person who made his soup." Rosa almost dropped the phone. Michael Jordan had eaten her food. The Michael Jordan, the man who had just come back from playing baseball, the man who was trying to bring the Chicago Bulls back to greatness. "He wants to meet with you tomorrow," Tim continued, "about a job. Are you interested?" Rosa looked around the busy kitchen. She had worked so hard to get this far. Charlie Trotter's was one of the best restaurants in America. But working for Michael Jordan? That was impossible to imagine. "What kind of job?" she asked. "Private chef. Full-time. Very good pay. But there are rules you need to understand first." The next day, Rosa took the train to Highland Park. She had never been to such a rich neighborhood. The houses were huge, like palaces. She felt nervous in her best dress and coat. Michael Jordan's house was the biggest one on the block. It sat behind tall gates and perfect gardens. Rosa rang the bell and waited. Her heart was beating so fast, she thought it might explode. A security guard let her in. She walked up a long driveway to the front door. The house was even bigger up close. It looked like something from a movie. Tim Grover met her at the door. He was a friendly man with glasses and a warm smile. "Rosa, thank you for coming. Mr. Jordan is excited to meet you." They walked through rooms that seemed to go on forever. Rosa had never seen such expensive furniture, such beautiful art on the walls. Everything was perfect and clean. They found Michael Jordan in the kitchen. He was sitting at a counter, eating a bowl of cereal, regular cereal, like cornflakes or something simple. Rosa was surprised. She had expected him to be eating something fancy. "You must be Rosa," he said, standing up to shake her hand. "I'm Michael." Rosa knew who he was, of course. But seeing him in person was different. He was so tall, and he had kind eyes. Not what she expected from watching him play basketball, where he always looked so fierce. "Your black bean soup was incredible," Michael said. "My wife and I couldn't stop talking about it." "How did you learn to cook like that?" Rosa felt herself relax a little. He was talking to her like a normal person, not like a famous athlete talking to a nobody. "My grandmother taught me," Rosa said. "In Mexico, she said cooking is about more than just food. It's about putting love into everything you make." Michael smiled. "That's exactly what I tasted. Love." They talked for an hour. Michael asked about her family, her training, why she loved cooking. Rosa told him about coming to America, about her parents working so hard, about her dream to open her own restaurant someday. "I need someone who can cook real food," Michael said. "Not fancy restaurant food. Food that tastes like home, like family." "Can you do that?" "Yes," Rosa said without hesitation. "That's the only way I know how to cook." Tim Grover pulled out a thick contract. Rosa's eyes grew wide when she saw the salary. It was 3 times what she made at Charlie Trotter's. Enough to pay for her children's college. Enough to help her parents retire. But then Tim explained the rules. "You cannot talk about this job to anyone," he said. "Not reporters, not friends, not family. You can tell people you work as a private chef, but you cannot say for whom." Rosa nodded. She understood. "You cannot take photos in the house. You cannot write anything down about what you see or hear. And if anyone ever asks you about Mr. Jordan, you say nothing." The contract was 10 pages long, full of legal words Rosa didn't understand. But the message was clear. Complete silence. "Forever." "This isn't just about protecting my privacy," Michael said, looking serious now. "It's about protecting my family, my wife, my children. Can I trust you with that?" Rosa thought about her own children. How she would do anything to protect them. "Yes, Mr. Jordan, you can trust me. Just call me Michael," he said, smiling again. "We're going to be spending a lot of time together." Rosa signed the contract. Her hands were still shaking, but not from fear anymore. From excitement. From the knowledge that her life was about to change forever. "When can you start?" Michael asked. "Tomorrow," Rosa said. "Good. I'll show you the kitchen. It's got everything you need. Maybe too much stuff, actually. Juanita went a little crazy when we designed it." He led Rosa through the house to the kitchen. It was bigger than her entire apartment. Professional stoves. Multiple ovens. A refrigerator that was taller than she was. Counters made of expensive stone. "This is beautiful," Rosa whispered. "It's yours now," Michael said. "Well, ours. I hope you like making breakfast, because I eat the same thing every morning." "What's that?" "Scrambled eggs. Turkey bacon. Orange juice. Toast. Nothing fancy. Just like my mom used to make when I was a kid." Rosa smiled. She had expected him to want exotic foods. Complicated dishes. But he wanted comfort food. "Home cooking. I can do that," she said. As Tim drove Rosa back to the train station, she stared out the window at the big houses. She thought about her parents, about how proud they would be, their daughter cooking for the most famous athlete in the world. But she also thought about the contract. The promise she had just made. She would never be able to tell this story. Never be able to share this amazing thing that was happening to her. At least that's what she thought then. Rosa had no idea that 25 years later she would break that silence. That she would finally tell the world about the secret ingredient that made Michael Jordan great. But first, she had to learn what that ingredient was. And that would take time. A lot of time. Rosa's first day as Michael Jordan's private chef started at 6 a.m. She let herself into the quiet house with the key Michael had given her. The kitchen was dark and cold. Outside, snow was falling on the perfect lawn. She had spent the night planning fancy meals, gourmet breakfasts, creative lunches, the kind of food she made at Charlie Trotter's. After all, she was cooking for the greatest basketball player who ever lived. It had to be special. At 7 a.m. sharp, Michael walked into the kitchen. He was wearing workout clothes and looked like he hadn't slept much. "Morning, Rosa," he said with a tired smile. "Ready to make some magic happen?" Rosa had prepared everything perfectly. Fresh herbs chopped just right. Expensive ingredients lined up on the counter. She was going to make him the best breakfast of his life. "I thought I'd make you something special," Rosa said proudly. Truffle scrambled eggs with fresh herbs. Turkey bacon glazed with maple syrup. Fresh squeezed orange juice with a touch of… "Whoa," Michael said, holding up his hand. "That sounds amazing, but I just want regular scrambled eggs. Plain. Nothing fancy." Rosa felt confused. "But Mr. Jordan, Michael, I can make you anything. I trained at the best cooking school. I worked at…" "Rosa," Michael said gently, sitting down at the counter. "I appreciate all that. But I like simple food. Food that tastes like my mom's cooking. Can you do that?" Rosa nodded, but inside she felt worried. Simple food? Anyone could make simple food? Why did he need a trained chef for that? She made him plain scrambled eggs, regular turkey bacon, toast with butter, orange juice from a carton. It took her 15 minutes instead of an hour. Michael took one bite and smiled. "Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted." Over the next few weeks, Rosa learned Michael's routine. Every morning, the same breakfast: scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, toast, orange juice. Never anything different. For lunch, he wanted sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly, ham and cheese, sometimes a burger. But not fancy burgers. Regular burgers that tasted like McDonald's. "Can you make Big Macs?" Michael asked one day. Rosa was shocked. "You want me to make McDonald's food? I love Big Macs," Michael said, laughing. "But I can't go to McDonald's anymore without causing a scene. So can you figure out how to make them here?" Rosa spent 3 days learning to make Big Macs. She had to buy special sauce, practice making the buns just right, get the beef patties the exact same size as McDonald's. When she finally served Michael her homemade Big Mac, he took one bite and closed his eyes. "That's it," he said. "That's exactly right. Rosa, you're a miracle worker." Rosa felt proud, but also confused. She had gone to cooking school to learn how to make beautiful, complicated food. Now she was making fast food in a millionaire's kitchen. One evening, Rosa tried to be creative. She made Michael a beautiful dinner: grilled salmon with lemon sauce, roasted vegetables, wild rice with herbs. It looked like something from a magazine. Michael came home tired from practice. He looked at the plate and tried to smile. "This looks great, Rosa," he said. "Really beautiful." But Rosa watched him eat. He only took a few bites. He pushed the food around on his plate. After 10 minutes, he stood up. "I'm sorry, Rosa. I'm just not very hungry tonight." Rosa felt terrible. She had failed the most important job of her life, and she was already messing it up. The next morning, Michael found Rosa in the kitchen. She was crying while she made his eggs. "Rosa, what's wrong?" he asked, looking concerned. "I'm a terrible cook," Rosa said, wiping her eyes. "That dinner last night, you hated it. I don't know how to cook for you. Maybe you should find someone else." Michael sat down next to her. "Rosa, look at me." She looked up at him through her tears. "That food last night was incredible. Any restaurant in Chicago would be proud to serve it. But that's not what I need." "Then what do you need?" Rosa asked. Michael was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window at the snow falling in his backyard. "I need food that tastes like home," he said finally. "When I was growing up in North Carolina, my mom made simple food: fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. Nothing fancy, but it made me feel safe. It made me feel loved." Rosa listened carefully. "Now I'm 32 years old," Michael continued. "I play basketball in front of 20,000 people every night. Everyone expects me to be perfect. Everyone wants something from me. But when I come home and eat simple food, I can remember what it felt like to be a regular kid. Rosa understood now. This wasn't about fancy cooking. It was about comfort. About feeling normal in a life that was anything but normal. Just make food that tastes like home, Michael said. That's all I need. From that day on, Rosa changed everything. She stopped trying to impress Michael with complicated dishes. Instead, she focused on making simple food taste perfect. She learned to make his scrambled eggs exactly the way his mother did. Not too dry, not too wet. She figured out how to make his toast the exact shade of golden brown he liked. She started making foods that reminded Michael of his childhood. Fried chicken like his grandmother made. Cornbread with honey, sweet potato pie for dessert. But the most important thing Rosa learned was that Michael needed routine. The same breakfast every morning. The same pre-game meal before every game. Food became part of his preparation. Part of his mental game. Routine helps me focus, Michael explained one morning. If I know exactly what I'm going to eat, I can think about basketball instead. Rosa began to understand that she wasn't just feeding Michael's body. She was feeding his mind, his emotions, his memory, and slowly, she started adding something special to every meal. Not a spice or a sauce, something deeper, something that would change everything, but that would come later. First, Michael had to trust her completely, and Rosa had to learn that sometimes the most important ingredient in any recipe isn't something you can buy at the store. The kids, Marcus and Jasmine, started coming into the kitchen while Rosa cooked. Michael's wife Juanita would sit at the counter and talk with Rosa about their families. The house began to feel less like a workplace and more like a home. "You're not just our chef," Juanita told Rosa one afternoon. "You're part of our family now." Rosa smiled, but she didn't realize yet how true those words would become, or how important that feeling of family would be during the hardest times ahead. All she knew was that she was beginning to understand Michael Jordan in a way no one else did. She was learning what really made him hungry, and it wasn't just for food. By February 1996, Rosa had become part of Michael's daily routine. She knew exactly how he liked his coffee. She could tell by his footsteps whether he had slept well or not. She understood when he needed extra food and when stress had killed his appetite. The Chicago Bulls were doing something incredible. They were winning almost every game. The whole city was buzzing with excitement. Could they win more games than any team in history? Rosa felt the pressure too. She read the newspapers every morning. Everyone was talking about the Bulls. About Michael. About their chance to make history. What if I mess up his breakfast and he has a bad game? Rosa asked her sister Carmen one night on the phone. "Rosa, you're being crazy." Carmen laughed. "He's Michael Jordan. One breakfast isn't going to make him miss shots." But Rosa wasn't so sure. She had seen how much Michael's routine mattered to him. How everything in his life had to be perfect for him to play his best. One morning in March, Rosa was making Michael's pre-game breakfast when he walked into the kitchen looking stressed. "Big game tonight," he said, sitting down at his usual spot. Rosa knew. The Bulls were playing the Seattle Supersonics. If they won, they would tie the record for most wins in a season. The whole world would be watching. "Same breakfast as always?" Rosa asked. "Actually," Michael said, looking nervous, "can you add something extra today? Something that will give me good luck?" Rosa's heart started beating faster. This was it. This was her chance to really help him win. She made his usual scrambled eggs, but she cooked them with extra care. She whispered a little prayer over them, like her grandmother had taught her. She made his toast a perfect golden brown. She squeezed his orange juice fresh and served it in his favorite glass. But most importantly, she did something she had been doing for weeks without really thinking about it. Something that had become as natural as breathing. She cooked with love. Real love. The same way she cooked for her own children. That night, the Bulls won. Michael played like magic. The crowd went crazy. Chicago was one step closer to history. The next morning, Michael came into the kitchen with a huge smile. "Rosa, that breakfast yesterday was special. I could feel the difference. Can you do that for every game?" Rosa nodded, but she felt scared. What if the magic stopped working? What if she couldn't help him win the most important games? "I need to ask you something," Michael said. "Some games this season, I might ask you to travel with the team, to make sure I eat the right food on the road." Would that be okay? Rosa couldn't believe it. Travel with the Chicago Bulls? See Michael play in other cities? It was like a dream. Of course, she said. Whatever you need. The first road trip was to New York. Rosa had never been on a private plane before. She sat in the back watching the players joke around and play cards. Michael was different on the plane. More relaxed, he came back to talk with Rosa about food for the next day's game. The hotel kitchen won't know how to make my breakfast right, he said. Can you handle that? I'll take care of everything, Rosa promised. She did. She woke up at 5 a.m. and went to the hotel kitchen. She brought her own ingredients, her own pan for the eggs. She made Michael's breakfast exactly the same way she made it at home. The Bulls won that game too. And the next one. And the one after that. Rosa started noticing something. On days when Michael seemed worried or upset, his appetite would disappear. She learned to make smaller portions on those days, softer foods, comfort foods that were easy to eat even when his stomach was nervous. When reporters asked Michael about his diet, he would smile and say, I eat whatever Rosa makes me. She takes good care of me. But Rosa knew it was more than that. She was learning to read Michael's moods, to understand what he needed before he even asked for it. One night in April, Rosa was cleaning up the kitchen when she overheard Michael talking to his wife Juanita in the next room. I don't know what it is about Rosa's cooking, he said, but when I eat her food, I feel like I can do anything. Like I'm not just Michael Jordan, the basketball player. I'm just Michael, and everything is gonna be okay. Rosa stopped washing dishes and listened. She reminds me of my grandmother, Michael continued. The way she cares about every single meal. Like it really matters. Juanita laughed softly. It does matter, honey. That's what you don't understand. When some cooks for you with love, you can taste it. Rosa felt tears in her eyes. She was starting to understand what she was really doing for Michael. It wasn't just about food. It was about giving him a safe place, a feeling of home. The Bulls finished the regular season with 72 wins, more than any team in NBA history. Rosa had been part of every single victory meal. On the night they clinched the record, Michael found Rosa in the kitchen after the game. We did it, he said, giving her a hug. 72 wins. You did it, Rosa said. I just made breakfast. Michael looked at her seriously. Rosa, you did more than make breakfast. You gave me something to count on every single day. In a season when everything was crazy and everyone wanted something from me, you gave me the one thing that never changed. He paused, looking out the kitchen window at his backyard where snow was finally melting. You gave me peace, he said quietly. But Rosa knew the real challenges were still coming. The playoffs, the pressure to win another championship, the weight of the whole city's hopes on Michael's shoulders. And through it all, she would be there, making his breakfast every morning, adding that special ingredient to every meal. The ingredient that she was finally beginning to understand. The ingredient that it had nothing to do with spices or seasonings or cooking techniques. It was starting to change both of them in ways neither of them expected. As Rosa drove home that night, she thought about Michael's words, about giving him peace. She realized that cooking for someone with love wasn't just about feeding their body. It was about feeding their soul. But she had no idea how important that would become, or how much Michael would need that soul feeding in the difficult days ahead. The championship season was just beginning, and so was the real test of what Rosa could give to the man who had everything but was still hungry for something more. It was a quiet Tuesday morning in May 1996. Rosa was making Michael's breakfast when she heard him on the phone in the next room. His voice was different, sad, angry. I don't care what the police say, Michael was saying. I know they haven't tried hard enough. It's been almost 3 years, and they still don't have answers. Rosa knew he was talking about his father. James Jordan had been murdered in July 1993. 3 years ago, but still fresh in Michael's heart like it happened yesterday. When Michael came into the kitchen, his eyes were red. He sat down at the counter but didn't touch his food. Not hungry this morning, he said quietly. Rosa had learned that when Michael was upset, food was the last thing on his mind. But she also knew that not eating would make everything worse. How about I make you something different today? Rosa asked gently. Something that might help. Michael looked up at her. Like what? Rosa thought for a moment. Then she remembered something from her own childhood. When she was sad, her grandmother would make her a special kind of cornbread. Sweet cornbread that tasted like love. My grandmother used to make cornbread when I was feeling bad, Rosa said. She said it was like a hug you could eat. Would you like to try some? Michael nodded slowly. Rosa spent the next hour making cornbread from scratch. She used her grandmother's recipe that she had memorized as a child. While it baked, she and Michael sat at the counter in comfortable silence. When the cornbread was ready, Rosa cut a warm piece and put honey on it. She placed it in front of Michael. He took one bite and closed his eyes. When he opened them, there were tears. This tastes exactly like something my grandmother used to make, he whispered. In North Carolina when I was little, food has memory, Rosa said softly. My grandmother taught me that. When we eat something made with love, it brings back all the people who loved us. Michael ate the whole piece, then another one. Rosa, he said, can I tell you something? Something I don't talk about with anyone? Rosa nodded. When my dad died, I lost my appetite for everything. Not just food, basketball, life. Everything tasted like nothing. I thought it would never come back. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Rosa waited. But when you cook for me, I can taste things again. It's like you're bringing back something I thought was gone forever. Rosa felt her heart breaking for him. This man who seemed so strong on television, so confident on the basketball court, was still a little boy missing his father. My dad used to love watching me eat, Michael continued. He would sit at the kitchen table and smile while I had breakfast before school. He said food tasted better when you ate it around people who loved you. He was right, Rosa said. From that day on, their relationship changed. It wasn't just about making meals anymore. Rosa became someone Michael could talk to about things he couldn't discuss with anyone else. While she cooked, Michael would sit at the counter and share stories about his father, about growing up in North Carolina, about feeling pressure to be perfect all the time. Sometimes I forget that I'm allowed to be sad, Michael said one morning while Rosa made pancakes. Everyone expects me to be strong every second of every day. Being sad doesn't make you weak, Rosa said, flipping pancakes. It makes you human. Rosa started paying attention to the foods that made Michael feel better when he was missing his father. Anything that reminded him of home, of family dinners, of being a regular kid instead of a superstar. She learned to make his mother's fried chicken recipe. She perfected sweet potato pie the way his grandmother made it. She even figured out how to make the exact biscuits he remembered from childhood Sunday dinners. But the most important thing Rosa discovered was that Michael needed to talk while she cooked. Something about the smell of food cooking and the sounds of the kitchen made him feel safe enough to share his real feelings. One evening, Rosa was making dinner when Michael came home looking exhausted. Bad practice? She asked. Bad everything, Michael said, sitting down heavily. The reporters keep asking me about winning another championship. The fans expect miracles every night. Sometimes I feel like I'm carrying the whole city of Chicago on my shoulders. Rosa continued stirring soup while she listened. And the worst part is, I can't even call my dad anymore when things get tough. He always knew exactly what to say to make me feel better. Michael put his head in his hands. Some days I don't know if I'm playing basketball for me or for everyone else. Some days I don't even know who I am anymore. Rosa turned off the stove and sat down next to Michael. You want to know what I see when I cook for you, she said. Michael looked up. I see a man who says please and thank you every morning. I see someone who asks about my children and remembers their names. I see a person who treats me like family, not like an employee. Rosa continued. The whole world sees Michael Jordan the basketball player. But I see Michael Jordan the man. And that man is good. That man is kind. That man deserves to be taken care of. Michael wiped his eyes. Thank you, Rosa. I needed to hear that. That's what family is for, Rosa said. And she meant it. Somewhere along the way, Michael had stopped being just her boss. He had had like a son to her. And Rosa had become something Michael didn't even know he needed. She had become the mother figure he could turn to when the weight of being perfect became too heavy to carry alone. But Rosa was also learning something about herself. Taking care of Michael was changing her, making her understand that her gift wasn't just cooking. It was loving people through food. It was creating safety in a kitchen. It was being present when someone needed comfort. Rosa, Michael said that night as she was getting ready to leave, I know I pay you to cook, But what you really do for me is so much more than that. I hope you know how grateful I am." Rosa smiled. "I know. And Michael? Yeah? Your father would be so proud of the man you've become. Not because you're famous, not because you win games, but because you have a good heart." Michael hugged her goodbye that night, something he had never done before. As Rosa drove home, she thought about what was happening between them. She was adding something to Michael's mails that couldn't be bought in any store. Something that was healing both of them. She was adding the one thing that everyone needs, but not everyone gets. The one thing that can turn a simple breakfast into medicine for the soul. But Rosa still didn't have a name for it yet. She just knew that when she cooked for Michael, she wasn't just feeding his body. She was feeding his heart. And somehow that was feeding hers too. The playoffs were starting soon. The pressure would get even more intense. Michael would need that heart feeding more than ever, and Rosa would be ready to give it to him. The summer of 1997 felt different. Rosa could sense it the moment she walked into Michael's kitchen, that first morning after the Bulls won their 5th championship. Something had changed. Michael was sitting at the counter, staring out the window. His usual breakfast was getting cold in front of him. "Good morning," Rosa said quietly. "Everything okay?" Michael looked up at her with tired eyes. "Rosa, can I ask you something? How do you know when it's time to stop doing something you love?" Rosa felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard the rumors all summer. Michael might retire again. The Bulls might break up the team. Everything might change. "Are you thinking about leaving basketball?" she asked. Michael sighed. "I don't know. Maybe. The front office doesn't want to pay the coaches. They don't want to keep the team together. And I'm getting older. My body hurts every morning now." Rosa sat down next to him. She had been working for Michael for almost 3 years. She had never seen him look so confused. "What does your heart tell you?" she asked. "My heart says I still love playing, but my head says everything is falling apart around me." Rosa understood. She had felt the same way when she left Mexico as a child, when everything familiar was disappearing and she had to decide what mattered most. "Maybe you don't have to decide everything right now," Rosa said. "Maybe you just take it one day at a time, one meal at a time." Michael smiled for the first time that morning. "You always know what to say." But as the 1997-98 season started, Rosa could see the stress eating away at Michael. He was playing harder than ever, but he was also more tired than she had ever seen him. His appetite started changing. Some mornings he couldn't eat anything. Other days he wanted to eat everything in sight. Rosa had to learn to read his moods even more carefully. "The reporters keep asking me if this is my last season," Michael told her one morning in November. "Every single day someone wants to know if I'm retiring. I can't even think about basketball anymore without thinking about endings." Rosa was making his eggs extra soft that morning. She had noticed that when Michael was stressed, he had trouble swallowing hard foods. "You know what my grandmother used to say?" Rosa asked, stirring the eggs slowly. She said worry is just fear wearing a disguise. And fear tastes terrible in food. "What do you mean?" "When I cook worried, the food comes out wrong. When I cook with love, even simple eggs taste good. Maybe basketball is the same way." Michael thought about this while he ate. "So you're saying I should stop worrying about retiring and just focus on playing?" "I'm saying maybe you should stop trying to control tomorrow and just be present for today." Rosa could see this was helping. Michael's shoulders relaxed a little. He finished his whole breakfast instead of just picking at it. But then December came, and everything got worse. Michael came home from practice one day looking like he had seen a ghost. "Phil might be gone after this season," he said, referring to Coach Phil Jackson. "And Scotty too. They're gonna break up everything we built." Rosa knew how much Phil Jackson and Scottie Pippen meant to Michael. They weren't just his coach and teammate. They were his family. "How can they do this to us?" Michael asked. "We just won 5 championships together. We're still the best team in basketball. But they want to save money more than they want to win." Rosa had never heard Michael sound so angry and hurt at the same time. That night, Rosa did something she had never done before. She made Michael a special dinner. Not because he asked for it, but because she could see his heart was breaking. She cooked all of his favorite comfort foods. Fried chicken like his grandmother made, mac and cheese from scratch, sweet cornbread, green beans cooked the way his mother did them. When Michael saw the spread of food, his eyes filled with tears. "Rosa, what is all this?" "This is me taking care of you the only way I know how," she said. "When someone you love is hurting, you feed them. That's what family does." Michael sat down and ate slowly. With every bite, Rosa could see some of the tension leaving his body. "You know what scares me most?" he said between bites of cornbread. "What? What if I'm not Michael Jordan without basketball? What if I don't know who I am when this is all over?" Rosa had been waiting for this question. She had seen it building in Michael for months. "Michael, you were a person before you were a basketball player. And you'll be a person after. The question is, do you remember who that person is?" They talked until almost midnight. Rosa learned things about Michael that night that she had never known. About his fears. About his dreams that had nothing to do with basketball. About the man he wanted to be when the games were over. As the season continued, Rosa realized she was watching something historic. Not just because the Bulls were winning games, but because she was seeing the end of an era happening in real time. Every meal felt more important. Every conversation felt deeper. Rosa knew that she and Michael were both trying to hold on to something that was slipping away. In February, Michael got sick. Really sick. Food poisoning from a pizza in Utah the night before a crucial game. Rosa got a call at 3 a.m. from the team doctor. "Rosa, can you fly to Utah right now? Michael can't keep anything down and we need someone who knows how to feed him when he's like this." Rosa was on a plane by 6 a.m. She brought special soup she had made for her own children when they were sick. Bland foods that would be gentle on Michael's stomach. Most importantly, she brought the comfort of having someone who cared about him. She spent 2 days in Utah, nursing Michael back to health, feeding him tiny spoonfuls of broth, making sure he stayed hydrated, staying by his bedside like a mother caring for her child. "I don't know if I can play tomorrow," Michael whispered on the second day. "I still feel terrible." "You don't have to decide right now," Rosa said, placing a cool cloth on his forehead. "Let's just focus on getting some food in you." She made him the softest scrambled eggs he had ever eaten. Toast cut into tiny pieces, weak tea with honey, baby food portions that his stomach could handle. The next day, Michael played one of the greatest games of his career. The flu game, they called it later. Rosa watched from the team hotel, tears streaming down her face, as Michael pushed his sick body to incredible heights. After the game, Michael called her. "Rosa, I couldn't have done that without you. You saved me." But Rosa knew it was bigger than that. She wasn't just feeding Michael's body back to health. She was feeding his spirit, giving him the strength to keep fighting even when everything was falling apart. As the season moved toward its end, Rosa began to understand that she wasn't just watching Michael's last dance as a player. She was watching her own last dance as his chef. Soon, everything would change. And Rosa would have to figure out how to say goodbye to the most important job of her life. The job that had taught her the real power of the secret ingredient she had been adding to every meal. The ingredient that was about to change everything for both of them. June 14, 1998. Rosa woke up at 4 a.m. Even though she didn't need to be at Michael's house until 6, she couldn't sleep. Tonight was Game 6 of the NBA Finals. If the Bulls won, they would be champions again. If they lost, the season would continue. But Rosa knew the truth that most people didn't. Win or lose, this was the end. Michael had made his decision. He was retiring after this game. He hadn't announced it publicly, but he had told Rosa 3 days earlier while she made his breakfast. "This is it," he had said quietly. "After Sunday, I'm done." Rosa had felt her heart break a little. Not just because Michael was leaving basketball, but because her job was ending too. After this season, there would be no more 6 a.m. breakfasts. No more pre-game meals. No more being part of Michael Jordan's daily life. Now on the morning of his final game, Rosa drove to Highland Park with tears in her eyes. She was going to make Michael Jordan's last meal as a Chicago Bull. When she arrived, the house was quieter than usual. Michael was already awake, sitting in his favorite chair in the kitchen. He looked calm but tired. "Morning, Rosa," he said with a sad smile. "Ready for our last breakfast together?" Rosa nodded, not trusting herself to speak yet. She started making his usual meal. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, toast, orange juice. But this time, every movement felt special. Every step of the process felt like a ceremony. While the eggs cooked, Michael watched her carefully. "Rosa, "I want to tell you something," he said. "These past 3 years, having you cook for me, it's been about more than just food." Rosa kept stirring the eggs, listening. "When I eat your food, I taste something I can't get anywhere else. Something that reminds me I'm not just a basketball player. I'm a human being who deserves to be cared for." Rosa felt tears starting, but she kept cooking. "You made me feel like I had a mother looking after me again," Michael continued. "Every single day. Do you understand how much that meant to me?" Rosa turned to face him. "Michael, cooking for you changed my life too. You trusted me with your home, your family, your secrets. You made me feel like I mattered." They were both crying now. Rosa served Michael his breakfast, but neither of them ate much. The food sat between them like a bridge connecting their hearts. "I have something for you," Michael said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small box and an envelope. "Don't open these until later," he said. "Promise me." "I promise," Rosa said, taking the gifts with shaking hands. "And Rosa, when people ask you about cooking for me, you can tell them whatever you want. The contract doesn't matter anymore. You're free to share our story." Rosa looked at him in surprise. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Someday maybe people should know what really happened in this kitchen. What you really gave me all these years." That afternoon, Rosa prepared Michael's pre-game meal for the last time. She made it with extra care, extra love. She whispered prayers over the food, asking God to keep Michael safe during the game and to help him find peace with his decision. When Michael left for the United Center that evening, he hugged Rosa longer than usual. "Thank you," he whispered in her ear, "for everything." Rosa watched from the kitchen window as Michael's car disappeared down the driveway. She knew she would probably never see him eat in this kitchen again. That night, Rosa watched the game on television from her own home. She saw Michael make incredible shots. She saw him push his tired body to one last moment of greatness. She saw him win his 6th championship, but mostly she saw him say goodbye. When the final buzzer sounded, Rosa cried. Not just because the Bulls had won, but because an era was over. Michael Jordan's playing career was finished, and so was her role in his life. The next morning, Rosa went to Michael's house one last time. She cleaned the kitchen. She put away all the dishes. She left a note thanking the Jordan family for 3 years of memories. Before she left, she opened the envelope Michael had given her. Inside was a letter written in Michael's handwriting. "Rosa, you probably think you were just my chef. But you were so much more than that. You were the person who fed my soul when I didn't even know I was hungry. Every meal you made with love reminded me that I wasn't alone. When my father died, I lost my appetite for everything. You brought it back by cooking for me like I was your own son. I will never forget the gift you gave me. You didn't just feed my body. You fed my heart. With gratitude and love, Michael." Rosa read the letter 3 times before she could see clearly through her tears. Then she opened the small box. Inside was a championship ring. Not a replica, but a real one, with a note that said, "You earned this too." Rosa drove home that morning, knowing that her life was about to change again. She would have to find a new job, a new routine, a new purpose. But she also knew that what had happened between her and Michael was bigger than a job. It was bigger than cooking. It was about the power of love to heal and strengthen and nourish in ways that go beyond. For 3 years, Rosa had been adding a secret ingredient to every meal she made for Michael Jordan. An ingredient that couldn't be bought in any store. An ingredient that had the power to turn a simple breakfast into medicine for the soul. She still didn't have a name for it, but she knew it had changed both of their lives forever. As Rosa pulled into her own driveway, she thought about the future. Maybe someday she would open her own restaurant. Maybe someday she would tell the world about her time with Michael Jordan. But for now, she was just grateful. Grateful that she had been chosen to feed one of the greatest athletes who ever lived. Grateful that she had learned the true power of cooking with love. And grateful that she had discovered a secret ingredient that would stay with her for the rest of her life. The secret ingredient that had made all the difference. Rosa Martinez opened the doors to Abuela's Kitchen on a cold Chicago morning in November 1999. The small restaurant was her dream come true. With the money she had saved from working for Michael Jordan, plus a generous loan he had helped her secure, she finally owned her own place. The restaurant was small but warm. 20 tables with red tablecloths, pictures of her family on the walls, the smell of authentic Mexican food filling every corner. Rosa worked 16-hour days, but she loved every minute of it. She never talked about Michael Jordan. Customers would sometimes ask about her past. They could tell she was a skilled chef who had worked somewhere important. But Rosa would just smile and change the subject. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" A customer asked one day, tasting Rosa's famous chicken mole. "My grandmother taught me," Rosa said. That was all she ever said. The truth was, Rosa missed Michael every single day. She missed making his breakfast. She missed their morning conversations. She missed being part of something bigger than herself. But she had made a promise to keep his private life private. Even though Michael had released her from the contract, Rosa felt it was right to stay quiet. She watched Michael's life from a distance. When he came back to play for the Washington Wizards in 2001, Rosa felt worried. He looked older, more tired. She wondered if he was eating well. She wanted to call him, to offer to cook for him again. But she knew that part of their lives was over. Rosa's children were proud of their mother, even though they didn't know the full story of her famous job. "Mama, why won't you tell us about working for that basketball player?" her daughter Carmen asked one day. And "Some stories aren't mine to tell," Rosa said. "Maybe someday." The years passed quietly. Rosa built her restaurant into one of the best Mexican places in Chicago. Food critics wrote good reviews. Customers became regulars. Rosa hired her sister and 2 of her cousins to help run the kitchen. But she never stopped thinking about Michael, and about the secret ingredient she had put into every meal, about the power of cooking with love. In 2009, Michael was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Rosa watched the ceremony on television, tears streaming down her face as he gave his speech. She was so proud of him, but she also felt a deep sadness. They had been so close once. Now they were strangers again. That night, Rosa went to her office in the back of the restaurant. She pulled out a small box from her desk drawer. Inside was the championship ring Michael had given her, along with his letter. She read the letter for the 100th time. "You didn't just feed my body. You fed my heart." Rosa had never worn the ring. It felt too special, too precious. But sometimes on quiet nights like this, she would hold it and remember. As the years went on, Rosa's grandchildren started coming to the restaurant after school. She would make them snacks and help them with homework. Watching them eat her food with such joy reminded Rosa of why she loved cooking. One afternoon in 2015, her grandson Diego, who was 8 years old, was eating Rosa's famous chicken tacos. "Abuela, why does your food taste so much better than other places?" he asked. Rosa smiled. "Because I make it with love, mijo. That's the secret ingredient." Diego looked confused. "Love isn't an ingredient. You can't put love in food." Rosa sat down next to him. "Yes, you can. When you cook for people you care about, they can taste the difference. The food becomes more than just food. It becomes a way to show someone you love them." "That's silly, abuela." "Is it? How do you feel when you eat my cooking?" Diego thought for a moment. "I feel happy and safe. Like everything is going to be okay." "That's love you're tasting," Rosa said softly. In 2016, Rosa had a heart attack. It was mild, but it scared her family. As she lay in the hospital bed, Rosa realized that she was getting older. Someday she would die, and when that happened, her story about Michael Jordan would die with her. Was that fair? Was that right? Rosa thought about all the people who admired Michael Jordan, who wanted to understand what made him so special. Maybe knowing about the love and care he received at home would help them see him as more than just a basketball player. Maybe her story could help other people understand the power of taking care of each other. But Rosa still wasn't ready. The memories felt too private, too sacred. Then in 2020, The Last Dance documentary came out. Rosa watched all 10 episodes, crying through most of them. She saw footage of Michael during those final seasons when she was cooking for him. She saw his pain, his struggles, his greatness. But she also saw what was missing from the story. The documentary showed Michael's competitive side, his talent, his achievements. But it didn't show the quiet moments, the vulnerable conversations, the simple act of being cared for. Rosa realized that her story wasn't just about Michael Jordan. It was about everyone who has ever needed to be nurtured. Everyone who has ever been far from home and hungry for more than just food. On the 10-year anniversary of Michael's Hall of Fame induction, Rosa finally opened the envelope he had given her on that last day in 1998. She had been saving it, waiting for the right moment. Inside was another letter, shorter than the first. Rosa, if you're reading this, it means enough time has passed for you to decide whether to tell our story. I want you to know that everything we shared was real. The comfort you gave me was real. The love you cooked with was real. If you ever decide to share what happened between us, I will be grateful. The world needs to know that even people who seem to have everything still need someone to take care of them. Thank you for taking care of me. Your friend always, Michael. Rosa read the letter 3 times, tears blurring her vision. The next morning she called her daughter Carmen. I think it's time, Rosa said. Time for what, Mama? Time to tell the story about the secret ingredient. Rosa had kept Michael Jordan's secret for 22 years. She had honored their friendship with her silence. But now, she realized that some secrets are meant to be shared. Some secrets can help heal the world. The secret ingredient that had saved Michael Jordan's appetite for life was too important to keep hidden forever. It was time for Rosa Martinez to tell the world about the power of cooking with love. Sarah Chen arrived at Abuela's kitchen on a sunny Tuesday morning in March 2023. Rosa had been thinking about this moment for months. Today, she would finally tell the truth about Michael Jordan's secret ingredient. Rosa poured Sarah a cup of coffee and sat down at a corner table. The lunch crowd wouldn't arrive for another hour. They had privacy. Before I tell you about the food, Rosa said, I need you to understand something. Michael Jordan is a good man. Everything I'm about to tell you shows that. People think they know him from basketball, but they don't know his heart. Sarah nodded and turned on her recorder. Now, Rosa said, taking a deep breath, let me tell you about the secret ingredient that everyone wants to know about. Rosa paused, looking out the window at the busy Chicago street. The secret ingredient wasn't a spice. It wasn't a vitamin. It wasn't anything you could buy in a store. Sarah leaned forward. What was it? Love, Rosa said simply. The secret ingredient was love. Sarah looked confused. I don't understand. How can love be an ingredient? Rosa smiled. Let me explain. 3 weeks into my job, Michael asked me something that changed everything. He said, Rosa, I want you to cook every meal like you're feeding your own son. Can you do that? Rosa's eyes filled with tears as she remembered that moment. I thought it was a strange request, but I said yes. And from that day on, every meal I made for Michael, I made with a mother's love. Sarah was writing quickly. Why did he ask that? Because Michael was grieving, Rosa said. His father had been murdered 3 years before I started working for him. Michael was still broken inside. He told me that after his father died, food tasted like nothing. He had lost his appetite for everything. Rosa reached across the table and touched Sarah's hand. When someone you love dies, sometimes you forget how to take care of yourself. Michael was taking care of everyone else. His team, his fans, his family. But no one was taking care of him. And you changed that? I tried to every morning when I made his breakfast. I pretended I was feeding my own child. I whispered prayers over his food. I made sure every bite was prepared with care and attention. Rosa stood up and walked to the kitchen. She came back with a plate of scrambled eggs, just like the ones she used to make for Michael. These look like regular eggs, Sarah said. They are regular eggs. But watch how I made them. Rosa took the eggs back to the kitchen. Sarah followed with her recorder. First, I cracked the eggs slowly, gently, like I'm handling something precious. Rosa demonstrated as she spoke. Then I add a tiny bit of milk, not because it makes them taste better, but because that's how my grandmother made eggs for me when I was sick. She stirred the eggs in the pan with careful, slow movements. I cooked them on low heat, never rushing, never trying to save time. Because when you're feeding someone you love, time doesn't matter. Only care matters. As the eggs cooked, Rosa continued talking. While they cook, I think about the person who will eat them. I think about their day, their worries, their dreams. I put good thoughts into the food. Sarah watched, fascinated. For Michael, I would think about his games, about the pressure he carried, about how much he missed his father. And I would cook with the love a mother feels for her child. Rosa plated the eggs and handed them to Sarah. Now taste them. Sarah took a bite. Her eyes widened. They're different. They taste like comfort, like safety. That's love you're tasting, Rosa said. Love changes everything, even simple eggs. They went back to their table. Rosa poured more coffee and continued her story. After Michael's father died, he told me he felt like an orphan. Even though his mother was still alive, she lived far away. He needed someone close by who would take care of him like family. Rosa's voice grew softer. So I became that person. Not just his chef, his surrogate mother. Every meal was my way of saying, you're not alone. Someone loves you. Someone is taking care of you. Did Michael understand what you were doing? At first, no. He just knew the food made him feel better. But eventually, he figured it out. He started calling me his second mother. He said eating my food reminded him that he was loved. Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing this information. So when people ask what Michael Jordan ate to be so great, she said, they're asking the wrong question, Rosa finished. It wasn't what he ate. It was how it was prepared, with intention, with care, with love. Rosa pulled out the letter Michael had written to her and read part of it aloud. Every meal you made with love reminded me that I wasn't alone. When my father died, I lost my appetite for everything. You brought it back by cooking for me like I was your own son. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. This is incredible, but why tell this story now? After 25 years, Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Because the world is hungry, she said finally. Not for food, for love, for care, for someone to pay attention to them. She gestured around her restaurant, where customers were starting to arrive for lunch. Every day, people come in here looking for more than just a meal. They want to feel like someone cares about them. They want to taste love. Rosa stood up and walked to the window. Michael Jordan had everything: money, fame, success. But he was still hungry for the same thing everyone needs. He was hungry for a mother's love, for someone to take care of him without wanting anything back. She turned to face Sarah. That's what I gave him, and that's what changed everything. Not just for Michael, but for me too. I learned that cooking isn't really about food, it's about love. It's about taking care of people. Sarah asked her final question. What do you want people to understand from this story? Rosa smiled. I want them to understand that everyone needs to be nurtured. Everyone needs someone to cook for them with love. Even the strongest, most successful people in the world. She paused, thinking. And I want people to know that they have the power to give this gift to others. You don't need to be a professional chef. You just need to care. When you cook for someone with love, you're not just feeding their body, you're feeding their soul. Rosa sat back down and looked directly at Sarah. The secret ingredient that made Michael Jordan great wasn't something magical. It was something simple, something everyone can give and everyone needs. She smiled one last time. It was love, pure, unconditional, motherly love, served one meal at a time. Sarah Chen turned off her recorder and sat in silence for a moment. Rosa watched her, waiting. Around them, the lunch crowd at Abuela's kitchen was growing. The smell of fresh tortillas filled the air. That's the most beautiful story I've ever heard, Sarah said finally, wiping her eyes. Thank you for sharing it with me. Rosa nodded. It felt good to finally tell someone. I've been carrying that secret for so long. When will this interview air? Rosa asked. In about 3 weeks. We want to make sure we tell your story the right way. The way it deserves to be told. After Sarah left, Rosa went back to work in her kitchen. But something felt different. Lighter, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. That evening, Rosa was closing up the restaurant when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer it because she didn't recognize the number. Hello? Rosa. This is Michael. Rosa dropped the dish towel she was holding. After 15 years of silence, Michael Jordan was calling her. Michael? She whispered. How did you... I heard about the interview, he said. Sarah Chen called my office. She wanted to make sure she had the facts right. Rosa's heart was pounding. Are you angry with me? Michael laughed. And the sound brought tears to Rosa's eyes. It was the same warm laugh she remembered from their mornings together. Angry? Rosa, I'm grateful. You told our story better than I ever could. Rosa sat down in a chair, her legs suddenly weak. I was so worried you would think I betrayed your trust, she said. Rosa, you kept my secret for 25 years. That's not betrayal, that's loyalty. But more than that, you told the truth about what really matters. About love. About taking care of each other. They talked for an hour. Michael told Rosa about his life now. His children were grown. He was running the Charlotte Hornets basketball team. He was happy but sometimes still lonely. I think about those mornings in Highland Park all the time, he said. Those were some of the happiest moments of my life. Just sitting in that kitchen with you, eating breakfast, talking about everything and nothing. Rosa smiled through her tears. I think about them too. Rosa, I want to ask you something. My 60th birthday is coming up in February. I'm having a small party, just family and close friends. Would you cater it? Rosa couldn't believe what she was hearing. You want me to cook for your birthday? I want you to cook for me one more time. Like old times. With that special ingredient we talked about. Rosa started crying. Yes, of course. I would be honored. 3 weeks later, Rosa watched herself on television. The ESPN interview had turned into a special documentary called The Secret Ingredient: How Love Fed Michael Jordan's Greatness. Rosa sat in her living room with her children and grandchildren, watching her own story unfold on screen. When the documentary showed Michael's championship rings and then cut to Rosa talking about cooking with love, her grandson Diego turned to her. Abuela, is that really true? Did you really cook for Michael Jordan? Rosa nodded. For 3 years, Micho. Every single day. And the secret ingredient was really love? It was really love. Diego was quiet for a moment. Then he said, that's why your food tastes so good. Because you love us. Rosa hugged him tight. That's exactly right. The documentary was a huge success. Millions of people watched Rosa's story. Newspapers wrote articles about it. Other chefs called to say thank you for reminding them why they really cook. But the most important response came in the mail 2 days after the documentary aired. It was a letter from Michael. Rosa, the whole world knows our secret now. And I'm glad they do. You've reminded people that success isn't just about winning games or making money. It's about the people who love us and take care of us along the way. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for feeding my soul. Your friend always, Michael. On February 17, 2024, Rosa drove to a beautiful house in Highland Park. Not Michael's old house, but a new one where he was hosting his birthday party. She brought all the ingredients to make his favorite meal. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, toast, and orange juice. But this time, she also brought homemade cake and all his favorite comfort foods from their years together. When Rosa walked into the kitchen, Michael was waiting for her. He looked older, but his smile was the same. Hello, Rosa, he said, hugging her like they had never been apart. Hello, Michael. Happy birthday. Rosa sat up in the kitchen just like old times. Michael sat at the counter and watched her work. They talked about their families, about their memories, about how much they had both learned from each other. You know what I realized after watching the documentary? Michael said, I spent my whole career trying to be the best basketball player ever. But the thing I'm most proud of is that I knew how to accept love when it was offered to me. Rosa smiled as she whisked eggs. That's a gift too, you know. Not everyone knows how to let themselves be cared for. When Rosa served Michael his breakfast, he closed his eyes and took a bite. It tastes exactly the same, he said, like coming home. The party was wonderful. Rosa met Michael's grown children. She watched him laugh with old friends. She saw him happy and surrounded by people who loved him. At the end of the night, Michael walked Rosa to her car. This was perfect, he said. Thank you for making my birthday special. Thank you for letting me be part of your life again, Rosa said. Rosa, I want you to know something. That documentary you did, it's gonna help a lot of people. It's gonna remind them to take care of each other. Rosa nodded. I hope so. Everyone deserves to be fed with love. As Rosa drove home that night, she thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment. From a scared young chef to Michael Jordan's surrogate mother to the owner of a successful restaurant to the woman who finally shared the secret that changed everything. The next morning, Rosa was back in her own kitchen at Abuela's kitchen. Her grandson Diego came in after school. hungry for his usual snack. "What do you want today, Misho?" Rosa asked. "Scrambled eggs, abuela. Just like you used to make for Michael Jordan." Rosa smiled and cracked 2 eggs into a bowl. She added a little milk, just the way her grandmother had taught her. She heated the pan slowly, never rushed, and as the eggs cooked, she thought about Diego, about his day at school, about his dreams for the future. She cooked with all the love in her heart. When she served Diego his eggs, he took 1 bite and smiled. "Perfect, abuela. They taste like love." Rosa laughed. "That's because they are made with love. Misho, that's the only way I know how to cook." As Rosa watched her grandson eat, she realized that her story with Michael Jordan was never really about feeding a famous athlete. It was about learning the power of love to nourish and heal and strengthen. A power she would carry with her for the rest of her life. A power she would pass on to her grandchildren. The secret ingredient that had made all the difference. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. If this story touched your heart and reminded you about the power of cooking with love, please give this video a like. It really helps us reach more people who need to hear stories like Rosa's. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing, heartwarming stories that celebrate the human spirit. We share incredible tales of kindness, determination, and love every week. And please share this video with your friends and family. In a world that can sometimes feel divided, we all need reminders about the simple power of caring for one another. Rosa's story shows us that even the smallest acts of love can make the biggest difference. Together, we can spread kindness and awareness, one story at a time. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.